Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Adams Rite number MS1850S-310-628. That's a lock body is what it is. Well, lock body with a faceplate. That's what this is. MS, that is a marketing term from Adams Rite. It stands for maximum security. Their logo stamped down there on the laminated stainless steel bolts. Very nice and clean. Countless people counterfeit the Adams Rite lock, but none of them look as nice as the Adams Rite lock does, and just in terms of workmanship. I mean, there's not much to say about it, but at the end of the day, you know, the business end, the bolt that's keeping the door secure is a clean, very clean, yes. You should hear a little rattling. That's an anti-saw feature. There's a bearing inside of there. That's what's rattling around. It's normal. I remember the first time I heard it, I said, "What in the world?" And I was staring at this all over. I couldn't figure out what the heck was loose, and I thought, wait a minute, that's probably a security device. It's called the factory, and sure enough, that's what it is. Other copiers of this product have it as well. There'd be no doubt. But it's an MS, maximum security. This is an 1850. Long bolt. Okay. Once that's locked in place, it's not going to come down. This is going to be used in aluminum storefront, quite frankly. You could use it in other door types, I suppose, if you wanted to force it to work. Well, this platform will certainly work in hollow metal doors. You could make it work in wood doors, I suppose, as well. It's definitely not well, yeah, you could make this work in a wood door if you had to. The problem with that, though, is that its backset is so narrow that you're certainly going to have a problem with the cylinder or the thumb turn making contact with the stop. Aluminum storefront have very short projection blade stops is what those are called. But anyway, here it is. Let's take some basic dimensional properties and we'll talk about why you're probably looking at this. Overall height of the face, about 6 3/4. The width, about 1 inch. The projection of the bolt, it's about 1.5 inches. The 628 in the part number refers to the finish of the faceplate, and that's what we really should be measuring, about 6 7/8, and then 1 inch. It's going to look like that when it's all said and done. Obviously, aluminum, dark bronze, black can be done. You're going to get a couple of screws for attaching that plate, which is called properly an armor front. And then you're going to get a couple of machine bolts for installing it down to the aluminum storefront. That may or may not be what you're using, you know, these machine bolts to get it installed into what you're going through. That might be okay. You might need mounting tabs, you might need tube spacers, or you might need the mounting bridges. There are 3 mount types from Adams Rite, and you'll have to decide how you're going to install this. Mounting tabs are pretty common. They're all common. The bridges are common as well. Tube spacers, that could be how you install this as well. And a tube spacer, you would drill and tap the back side of the wall of the door itself, so you'd have to make sure that your tube spacer is the right length for the door construction. Mounting tabs are the easiest. They come in flat and beveled. Flat and radius are the same tab, and beveled are a different tab. And then, of course, the bridges. It's basically a clamp scenario that fits inside of that hollow tube, and you tighten it down, then you attach this to that. That's what that is. Now, why are you looking at this lock? Let's take a closer look. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Well, you need a lock. That's probably why. You're either replacing one, and you're not sure what to get, and this video hopefully will help you determine that, or you're doing an installation and you're not familiar with this already, which is pretty common. This lock gets used in certain applications, as does the bottom rail deadbolt, that are unusual, and I'll explain that in a moment. First of all, this is a 310, and we're going to dissect the part number when we get to the catalog. That means this is an 1.1 backset. Actually, I should be measuring this to the, well, backset is measured to the edge of the door, and because this faceplate is not sitting completely flat, we're not going to get quite an 1.1. It's going to be heavy on that, but it is 1.1 from what would be the edge of the door, the edge of the door to the center of the hole. To be specific about backset, because you're going to be measuring backset possibly before you order that. The backset is from the center of the thickness of the door. Let's switch to the screen view and let's just dissect backset, because this will matter to you. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. All right, here's backset. Here are 4 door edges: square, beveled, rabbited, radiused. Backset is the dimension from the edge of the door to the center of the hole. No problem on a square edge door, but you try that trick on a beveled edge door, and you're going to get 2 different dimensions. Backset is actually defined from here to the center of the hole. That's nice because it makes it agnostic, so to speak, of the door thickness. You could have a 6-inch thick door that's beveled. The backset is of 2 3/4 going to be the same backset as if it was a square edge door, because it's measured right from here. So if you have a beveled edge door and you're measuring on the high side of the door, if you're getting something that's like 1 3/16 rather than 1.1, that's okay. You get over here and you're getting about 1 1/16, that's okay, because you're losing this from the high side to the low side. That's 1/8 inch for every 2-inch in door thickness. So it's almost a 1/16 of an inch if you're dealing with 1 3/4 thick doors. Okay. And you're probably going to bump into a radiused edge door. That's here as well. So be mindful. You're going to need to pick up that backset from here back. Rabbited doors you're not going to see in aluminum construction ever. I've never heard of it. Wood doors you will, but not an aluminum storefront. Let's switch back to the camera view. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. I thought that was important enough to describe, so that's really what you're looking for. And these come in different backsets. If you order the wrong size, it's just not going to fit. It'll fit in the edge of the door, but your hole's not going to be lined up, so be sure to double check that. This is going to be used just as a lock on a single door or a pair of doors on the active. You can also use this and add a 40-15 threshold bolt and even add a 40-16 header bolt, which means you can turn this into 2-point bolting or 3-point bolting. You throw that key, you're going to lock it in the horizontal plane, you're going to lock it potentially at the header and at the threshold as well. So this MS1850 can really handle those applications as well. And we are going to switch to the screen view and talk about the other options. I said earlier that this lock and the bottom rail deadbolt can be used in weird applications. The bottom rail deadbolt is the same type of lock, except this bolt is reconfigured to be a smaller bolt, because in your jamb, if this is a swinging door, you're going to have a large rectangular cutout because the bolt needs to flip up like this. This large 1 3/4 has got to occupy a lot of space. In a bottom rail application, you're going to end up making a really big hole in the ground. So they have a modified version that requires less space, that you create a hole in the floor. And where this customer is, so unusual application for this client, the application for this is that he has a 2 3/4 inch thick door. Okay. That's an unusual door thickness, to be sure. I am not sure what the door is made of. That's 2 3/4. I'm thinking not aluminum storefront. It's got to be something You know what I bet it is? I bet it's something custom fabricated, a gate, something of that nature. And they have us doing a cylinder on one side and a mortise cylinder on one side and a mortise thumb turn on the other side. So, you know, I'm thinking it's 3-inch thick. I just don't recall. It's one of the two thicknesses, 2 3/4 or 3-inch. So we're taking cylinders and we're extending them, drilling and tapping holes in the back of the mortise cylinders, adding a threaded extension. We sell those. And then we're going to screw that down. We'll have a driver inside of there to attach the cam to. And we're going to start with an 1 1/4 cylinder, and we're going to end up with whatever we're going to end up with, 1.5 inches. No, I think this is a 4-inch door, because I think my cylinders, maybe it's 3 1/4, because my cylinders are going to be about 1.5 inches. They're going to be thicker. They're going to be longer than that. 1 inch, 1 1/4. They're going to be 2 1/4-inch cylinders when I'm done. And I think I've got 1/4-inch trim rings, so maybe about a 4-inch thick door, something like that. So you'll bump into that with this type of lock. What I'm driving to with saying all of that, when you go through the Adams Rite catalog, it's an interesting catalog because I've treated it at times as more of a picture book or an idea book. How can I solve this problem? What can I do? And Adams Rite hardware allows you to fit stuff in applications. And when you look at this, you can make this work in a wood application if you needed to. It's not intended for it, but you could make it work. You know, you'd have to mortise right hard to the top of the case back here. You're not going to have a lot of wood, but I would compensate that by sinking a very long screw very far down into the door, a 3-inch screw. Should be okay. You know, you're not pulling on this ever, really. And if someone's going to crush the door in, you're going to destroy a lot of the door to get this lock body to cave. Let's switch to the screen view now and look at the supporting documentation. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, let's take a look at this item that we have here. First, some images. There's the box, and we're going to dissect that part number in a moment. There's everything in the box. Your lock body, profile view, front view. These are the set screws that will hold the cylinders in place. Close-up of the laminated stainless steel bolt. Another view of it, where the cylinder will thread into, and the cam or the lobe that actuates the bolt back and forth. We have some more photos here. The back side, the faceplate and your screws, faceplate alone, and then just what that looks like. Adams Rite, MS, maximum security is what that stands for. All right, now let's take a look at the cut sheet that's down below. The MS1850S is a deadlock. Utilizes laminated stainless steel bolt, laminated plates to make a bolt to provide maximum security for a single leaf, narrow style aluminum door. Yeah, you're really not going to see. And function, a huge bolt, laminated stainless steel, nearly 3-inch long overall, sure. The length of the bolt provides maximum security for a single leaf door, even a very tall and flexible one, or an installation where the gap between the door and jamb is greater than it should be. 360-degree turn of the key or thumb turn projects or retracts the counterbalanced bolt. Can be removed only when the bolt is positively locked or unlocked, meaning you're not going to get the key out of the cylinder unless that bolt is fully extended or fully retracted. It needs to be in one of the two positions to be locked in place, most especially when it's in the locked position. You can install a cylinder on one or both sides, whether that be a keyed cylinder or a captive key cylinder or a thumb turn. 7/8, 31/32, 1 1/8 are available as back sets on this lock. 7/8 and 31/32 are awfully close. What I like to tell people is it's either 1 inch or a little less, or it's clearly more than 1 inch. And that's the dividing line between here and here. If they say below 1 inch, then we've got to get really accurate. And it's generally 7/8 in my experience. This talks about the case size, which is important to know, but not, you know, it is what it is. You got your faceplate that we measured. Now strike, see below for dimensions. This does not include a strike. You may need one, you may not need one. And what I mean by that is they generally will just prep the aluminum frame for this trapezoidal shaped cutout. 8 on the bolt, 8-ply laminated stainless steel. Center ply has alumina ceramic core to defeat any hacksaw attack, including rod-type super hacksaws. I don't know what that's called, what a rod-type super hacksaw is. You know, cutting stainless is hard just on its own. Okay. I'm just scanning through to avoid the hook bolt information. Sold, it's going to come with a faceplate, and then your screws is what you're going to get. Here are all the dimensional properties, and we'll look at that when we look at the template. So we'll skip over this for now, except to say that there are different faceplates that you can get depending on what you order. Flat, radius with a weather strip, or beveled, and those are handed. Shows you what it looks like when you're prepping it. Here's that weird cutout that you could do. It's wider at the bottom, and that's because as the bolt comes up, it will tighten the door in position really nicely. Okay. Now, how to dissect the part numbers right here. MS1850S or MS185. Let's start there. Flat radius with weather strip. The last 2 digits are what's going to dictate what you have. We're doing an 1850S, so we know we have a flat faceplate. It's a -3 in our part number, so we know it's 1 1/8. It's a 1 in the next value, which is a straight bolt, and then it's 0, non-handed, then finally 628. Let's take a closer look at the template now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here's the template and what will certainly act as installation instructions. Let's take a look. Upper right-hand corner, they're basically showing us what the dimensional properties need to be in the door. They're showing a radius door here. That doesn't matter really what door edge it is. Lock style preparation. What's important to note is where are the cylinders or cylinder prep? Probably going to be a hole on each side of the door, would be my guess. In relationship to where you're placing the lock body. Okay, now that's going to be really important to know as you need to reference something, is what you need to reference. And as we stare at the drawing, I can tell you that there's one component that seems confusing, at least to me it does. And let's just take a look. So they've got our basically 6 7/8 overall height. They're telling us from the top of the cutout to the center line of the cylinder is 1.594 inch, which is 1 in 1930 seconds. Don't quote me, I think. 1 divided by 32 times 19.59. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so 1 in 1930 seconds. Okay, great. So now we know the relationship from the top of the cutout to the center line of the cylinder, and that does match the hardware that I have. They're telling you from the finished floor, 34 to 44 inch up would be a pretty good height. The question becomes is, where do I locate this weird prep in the jamb or the edge of the door opposite for the cutout, for the bolt? Well, here's the cutout, this weird shape that they have here. The center line of the cylinder plus the B dimension is to the top of the cutout. Okay. So the center of the cylinder to the top of the cutout is B, 1 3/8. So from this top of the cutout plus 1 in 19/32 plus 1 3/8 would be where the top of this cutout is. Your cutout height is overall height a dimension, which is 3 3/8. So you know where to place the top of that cutout. They give you a 0.68, so 11/16 wide, and they want it basically 15/16 near the bottom. The thing to me that's confusing is they're giving us this C dimension of 1 inch from the top of the cutout to what would look like the bottom of the bolt. But it can't be. And I say that because the center line of the cylinder to the top of the bolt, having it here on my desk, I can tell you that it's about 1 5/8. So center line of the cylinder to the top of the bolt is 1 5/8. And they're telling you that center line of the cylinder to the top of the cutout should be 1 3/8. Well, that makes sense. It should be slightly less than what it would be on the lock. But if we were to take the C dimension and add the B and C together, that's 2 3/8. 1 3/8 plus 1 inch. So that's 2 3/8. The center line of the cylinder to the bottom of the bolt is far closer to 3 inch. About 3 inch, 2 15/16. But to the center line of the bolt, that would be about 2 3/8. So the center of the cutout, well, the C dimension is 1 inch, which is referencing the center of the bolt, apparently. I don't know why they even provide that data. I don't know. I can't think of why. They're giving us the top of the cutout to a reference point. I have no problem with that. And be mindful, if you're going to measure this from the underside of the header to the top of this, you're going to need to add the gap from the underside of the header to the top of the door in that B dimension. So it's probably 1/8 of an inch. So your B dimension is going to be 1 3/8 plus, so what I'm saying is this is not your B dimension at all. The center line. This has nothing to do with it. Center line, the 1 in 19/32 to the center here comes into play because then from there you'll go down the B dimension 1 3/8 before you start that cutout. Okay, and the center line of the lock will be centered in the rabbet of the frame. What I mean by that is it's probably more like what your aluminum storefront looks like. Here's your door. You're going to have some margin here. This could either be flush or slightly inset, but the center line of that lock needs to be on the center line. So you're going to need, when you lay that out on the jamb, you're going to need to take into account whatever your reference point is. If this is flush, and that the edge of the door to the center of your prep is 7/8, you'll use that same dimension over here. But you're going to take that prep, if you recall, you're going to splay it out like this. If I'm grossly exaggerating it, that's kind of what it's going to look like in the jamb, just less exaggerated, of course, as they are trying to infer here. And we're dealing with a regular bolt, by the way, not a short bolt. They do make these in short throw, where they're not that 1 3/4 inch projection, or 1.5 inches. They make a shorter one. Why would you need a shorter one? Well, because you don't have the depth of the frame to get such a large bolt in there, so they do make a short one. Then, of course, they make a hook bolt. Hook bolts are nice, and they're shown over here, these dimensions. Why are they nice? They're nice because you could use them in a sliding application. You could. You'd have to make some accommodations for that, but you could do it. People have. And you'll notice that A dimension is really going to change. Pardon me. The B dimension is really going to change because you want to get that top of the cutout down inside the hook. Now, as we scroll down, what they're showing us here is just a couple of machine bolts that are holding it into the lock body. So this web back here, that's clearly been drilled and tapped, and those bolts are going to hold that lock body in here. But as I said earlier, there are alternate mounting methods. They are showing the tube spacer here. Where you're going to, basically what you'll do with a tube spacer is you will drill right into the edge of the door a countersink for the bolt. And then you're going to use that bolt. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Let's show you what it really looks like in the catalog. And they don't list the mounting tabs there either. So I'm going to pull up the full product catalog. And I'm scrolling through to find the different mounting methods. Let's pause this video. And we were able to locate that. So the tube spacer really is very likely what you're going to need. And what I mean by that is when you go to install this, I mean, they're really depending on the depth of the body being such that it bottoms out in the back of this web. It's probably not going to be the case. So you do have to figure out how you're going to install it. That's where these mounting methods come in. So what will happen is you're still going to drill and tap that hole back there, but you'll need a tube spacer to the right length in order for you to then tighten that screw. And the tube spacer is what's going to keep the lock body in place because it will prevent the lock body from moving further. Let's say this dimension was 2 inch and your lock body was only 1.5 inches. Well, it's going to fall all the way in, but you're going to cut your tube spacers to, let's say, 1 13/16, which would act as the dimension from the underside here all the way back is what that would act as. So you've got tube spacers. Nothing special about that. That's just a piece of small conduit. You've got these bridges. They act as the same way where they get inside of there and then you tighten these screws and they just compression fit. Then you attach the lock body directly to it. Then the mounting tab method. Method C. And by the time you're seeing this video, we'll have a link on the manufacturer's page to the lock mounting method so that you could refer to that document. So mounting bridges, method 2 would be the spacers, and then of course you have tabs that are just not listed on here for some reason. Now they talk about a cylinder trim ring formula. Again, this is, to me at least, a drawing that's a little bit confusing. Because they're referencing what might be the underside of the mortise cylinder to the back of the mortise cylinder. I'm not sure what they're referring to there. That could be that. So that's, well, that would be okay to know that because you're going to know that, meaning you've got a 1 inch cylinder. So let's go with that. A is going to be, is the length of the cylinder. 1 inch plus 1/8 minus B, and B is obviously half of the door thickness. So let's say that that's 7/8. So that's going to be a 1/4 inch. So your TR, your trim ring, needs to be 1/4 inch. The only thing that I have a problem with that is they should show that to the underside of the head, because your cylinder, your mortise cylinder, is going to look like that. They're showing it here. They shouldn't. They should show it here to the door face. That should be the thickness of your collar. And that works. It works out great, actually. assuming that you're centering the lock body in the door. If you have I was mentioning earlier, if you have a 4-inch thick door, you may or may not be centering it. What I like to do is I basically find my center line of where the lock body would be. So to dive into this, I suppose, a little bit deeper, what I do, and I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but what I do is I simply figure out the length of the cylinder that I'm working with. Generally, I inherit a cylinder length, meaning this is what I have to use, or these are my options, and I pick the least worst of all of those. So what I mean to say is if you've got an 1 3/4 inch thick door, half of that is 7/8. Well, I can't really install my cylinder head tight to the face of the door, so I'm going to need to build that off a little bit. Let's back up. If I've got an 1 3/4 inch thick door, half of that is 7/8. I deduct a 1/16 of an inch so that when my cylinders, we can actually use part of this, when my cylinders are in the door, I've got a little bit of room in here. Okay? These are 2 cylinders back to back. So I'll take my door thickness, and half of that is 7/8, and I'll subtract a 1/16 of an inch. And that's ideally what I want my cylinder length to be, which would be here to the back of the cylinder. Well, 7/8 minus a 1/16 is 13/16. There are no 13/16 cylinders. So from that dimension, I'll say, what cylinder can I use? Well, I can get my hands on a 15/16 or a 1 inch. Or it might be like, well, I'm dealing with small format interchangeable core 6-pin, and I'm getting an 1 3/8 length cylinder. So 1 3/8 minus 13/16, which is what I need to have to work. I'm going to need a collar that's going to be 7/16. 1 3/8 minus 13/16. I'm sorry, that's 9/16 is what I would need. 9/16. That's the thickness of my collar. That's a little unusual. You're running into a small, not unusual, but let's say that I can use an 1 1/4 or a 1 inch cylinder. That's how I would go about doing it. 1 inch minus 3/16. I need a 3/16 thick cylinder collar. Well, we can do that. Adams Rite is not the company I think of when I think of collars. I think of Kaba Ilko, and it's because they have all these nice sizes. And if I need a 3/16, I'm going to be able to get exactly that. Let's say that we're dealing with, just aluminum, clear anodized aluminum. There's my 3/16 collar. So that's how I do it. And again, the only thing, I think this line is out of place, I think. But otherwise, I think that formula works fine. They're showing you the cam that you need to operate this. This is just a typical Adams Rite cam. Adams Rite actually has 3 cams. 99.9% of all of them is what we know as the Adams Rite cam, but there are 2 other ones. This needs the most common of all cams, the Adams Rite cam, or MS cam. That exhausts the template and installation instructions, in my opinion, and we did go over the product brochure that's here. Now there's a link, as I clean up my tabs, there's a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page, and from here we can pull up not only all of the Adams Rite products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. And as I may have mentioned earlier, I use the Adams Rite catalog really at times as a picture or idea book. I have solved lots of unusual application requirements using locks out of their catalog, and it's because you can, is the bottom line. That bottom rail deadbolt I had mentioned earlier, we used that. I'm going to give you the part number. It's an 1830 is what that is. It looks just like this, except that it has a modified bolt, where again, you're not taking up as much room. It's a smaller strike that you'd need, a smaller hole. Client was building some custom gates out of aluminum for the High Line in New York. The High Line is a extremely cool redeveloped part of the MTA, the Metro Transit Authority, in New York, and it's a green space is what it is. So they're building some gates, some like emergency egress gates kind of scenario. I don't think they were truly emergency exits, but they were access gates. Unusual thickness, bottom rail deadbolts, not centered at all. Had to come up with really funny length cylinders on these security keys, these restricted patented keys that they were using. And, you know, it worked out perfectly is the bottom line. You can use, you know, these locks to solve lots of problems. And they also have, fun fact about Adams Rite, they also have, client calls up and says, yeah, I've got a 1986 Carver. I'm thinking, what is a 1986 Carver? Well, it's a boat. Adams Rite makes locks for sliding doors. They don't only work in sliding doors in homes off of your lanai, they work in boats as well. So that's a very common thing. Any questions on the MS1850? This is a 310, 628 variant or any other Adams Rite product. Please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.